Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you are. My name is Jessica Canellis, and I wanted to thank you guys for coming to our final session in our Portus Lunch and Learns. Today, we are going to be doing Advanced Supply Chain and MRP. If you guys have any questions throughout this event, please throw them down into the question box, and the Portus team would be happy to answer any that you have. If you guys have any questions after the event, here is our contact information. You can contact Jim Castellano, the president and owner. You can contact myself, Jessica Canellis, and then, of course, for Made to Manage, you can contact Jim Cooey. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Bill Marakin from Portus so we can get this final session on its way.
Thank you, Jessica. I'm going to share my screen momentarily. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
And hear me loud and clear?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for attending the fourth of our 4 lunch and learns this year, the topic being the Portus MRP simulation engine. So I know that some of you have been to all of these, so this may be getting a little bit boring, but I know we have some attendees in this session that this is the only session they're attending, so some quick overview information. First of all, quickly about our company. We have been around for just over 15 years, and by all accounts, we're a software company, but a big part of our secret sauce is that we all come from manufacturing backgrounds, so we like to think that we can deliver fit like a glove type of solutions to our manufacturing customers. Specifically on Made to Manage, we have extensive experience, well over a decade building stuff on top of Made to Manage. And what do we do in one wordy sentence? We create curated, meaning carefully planned for maximum impact, real-time, meaning with a real-time link to your Made to Manage database analytics, and we allow you to peel the onion more and more through continuous drill downs into more and more detail, and we deliver this all in the most efficient way of delivering information, which is a browser. So it feels like you're shopping on Amazon or searching on Google. So we have 2 audiences in mind today. We have existing customers that are in this webinar, and here they just will get maybe an overview and say, hey, I didn't know Portus could do that. And for prospective customers, it's a way to just kind of be a fly on the wall, see what's going on, and see if Portus warrants the time for a more in-depth investigation. And of course, this is called a lunch and learn. So the lunch piece, within 48 hours of the conclusion of this session, we will send all of the attendees that were patient and stayed with us the whole time a $25 Starbucks gift card. One more slide about the events today. This is our high-level sales process. We're just kind of exchanging information right now. And you have really one question to really think about today is, do I see enough to warrant investing in a 1-hour demo? Or if you've already gotten some demos, do I want to do a 30-day free trial so that I can see this with my own data? And we are very confident about the effectiveness of our solution. So we sell it on a monthly subscription basis with the ability to cancel at any time. So there is no long-term commitments or roping you into long-term commitments. We don't need that because I think it stands on its own 2 feet. I am going to actually go through 2 more slides on today's topic because it's an interesting topic. Because what we are going to be seeing, a lot of it is under the hood. So first of all, why would you even consider MRP simulation, which is sold as a incremental functionality that you add to your normal Portus implementation? The main reason is that you may not be happy with the material planning processes in M2M. 2 things that come to mind immediately is that M2M is dependent on that planning and scheduling engine to plan material, and anytime you have any kind of demand, it will create jobs to back that up, and then you have this ongoing need to keep the jobs and sales orders in sync, and especially if you have a lot of changing demand, that could be problematic. With this engine, Even if you have no jobs in the system, it'll just explode the requirements straight from the sales orders. The other thing that's maybe a little bit more esoteric, but very important, is that when you're dealing with the MRP output of your ERP system, say made to manage, you are really stuck with whatever reporting is provided from there, because the underlying process, again, is under the hood. And so if they don't have a particular type of view of the information, you can't get it. Well, with Portus, we can do more and more reports. We'll build more reports for customers that look at the MRP dynamics in a different way. And the last thing is that this is built on a proprietary, complex algorithm, and it's designed to be wicked fast. So we're able to run through MRP for customers with thousands of sales orders, dense bill of materials in a very quick amount of time. And that could be very important if you're not happy with batch processes as it relates to MRP. And that ultra-fast algorithm opens the door for much more advanced types of functionality, like what-if planning and scenario comparisons. Last slide, because again, this is so much under the hood, and I'm assuming that some of the audience members here are students of MRP, but this is what's happening. I'm going to show you the reports in a second, but this is all what's happening under the hood. Portus, as soon as we run an MRP report, goes and grabs all of the information in blue from the made to manage database, just raw data, on-hand inventory, open purchase orders, open work orders, safety stock levels, so on and so forth. And then it runs through an algorithm. For example, it says, I have a sales order. Do I have, it's first in line. Do I have it on hand? No, I don't. Do I have it coming from a work order? No, I don't. Do I have it coming from a purchase order? No, I don't. Oh, I have to plan an order. Oh, it's a make item that I'm planning. So I got to do a bomb explosion and get the planned order requirement. So it just kind of runs through that thousands of times in a matter of milliseconds. And then in doing its magic, it's doing all of these things. So whenever it needs to, it does a full bill of material explosion. It takes into account lead time so it can properly plan for time. It looks at the shop calendar table in your made to manage system. And then it uses a bunch of levers that are already in made to manage, like, you have the source M, source S part. Source M means, there's a direct relationship between a work order and a sales order. Source S means it's first come, first serve. And it does planned order aggregations based on MOQs and days of supply, the types of things you see in your INX screen. So all of this is happening under the hood, and we're about to go see it in action. So I'll go ahead and log into a demo database of ours, and we'll go to the MRP tab, and here are our reports. We kind of have organized them into demand analysis, where you're interested in the MRP to know, am I going to be able to meet my demand? Supply analysis, where do I have too much supply or supply that is just out of balance with when I need it? And then some lower level kind of lowest common denominator reports that are drilled into from the various reports. Let's start with demand analysis, and I'm going to run the work order clear to build report. So here, while that wheel is spinning, all of that stuff I was telling you in that previous slide with the explosions and getting the information from made to manage, all of that happens, and it comes back with an analysis of the work orders. There's a lot of work orders. I've picked a particular work order because it has a lot of interesting things going on with it. You could do this too and say, well, I'm interested in II-409. So let's study what this report is telling us. First, it just tells us information about the work order. The number, its status, important. What is its due date? The quantity on the work order, what we're building, and then comes the analysis. The MRP is saying, I know the due date is 10/10, but this work order is not going to clear until December 15th, and then when I add the manufacturing lead time to build one of these things, it's not going to be ready to go until 2/5. So we are 118 days upside down when you compare February 5th to 10/10. Right here it says, by the way, your worst gating item is this purchased part, which is an integrated circuit, and we're waiting for 40 of those, and they're not going to be coming in until December. They're not going to be available until December 15th. That's why the clear date of the job as a whole is 12/15. And then we also show you the next worst gating item. If you get past that one, we have another item that's actually not on order, so we've calculated its available date based on its lead time, and based on its lead time, it won't be available until November 6th. So right here, you kind of say, okay, I'm 118 days upside down. I know exactly what my biggest problem part is, and if I'm able to resolve that, I know that I'll be able to shave over 30 days off of the clear date. So that's good summary information, but the drill is key here. We're going to click on the job number, and we're going to see now a very detailed dissection of what's going on with this work order. There's 3 sections here. What is the work order? And some of that information we already saw. The make parts that are involved in that work order, and the buy parts. So you can see here that it says, well, you're interested in II-409, so the assembly that is being built on II-409 obviously is a make part, but it actually has a sub job too, which is being built on II-409. Then all of the buy parts that go into either of these work orders are analyzed here in the buy item analysis. So there is a lot of parts that report to II-409, but there are some parts that report to II-409-0001. Let's take a look at those. There's only 3 parts we're waiting for, and they're all on hand. So we just got to issue them, which means that the clear to build date for the sub job is 8/28, and if we add the manufacturing lead time in the system for the sub job, we think we can have that ready by September 12th. The problem is that the parent job is getting this job, even if we complete it on 9/12, we're going to be waiting for stuff. So let me remove the filter here, and we'll see that it's already ordered it for us, and it says, there is that IC we were talking about. It's on order with this vendor. It's coming in on this PO. It's promised on 12/10, but then I have to add the receiving lead time to give you the projected availability date. So there's some help text here. So if a buy part is on hand, its clear date is today. If it's coming, if it's in receiving, its clear date is today. If it's on a PO, then it's the promised date of the PO, and if it's based on lead time, we don't have it on order, then it's today's date plus the vendor lead time. That gives us the clear to build date, and then we also add to that the receiving lead time, or the dock to stock. Like you see, these parts have dock to stock time. That's why even though they arrive on a particular date, they're not available until later. So then it says, okay, my worst buy part is not going to be available until 12/15. Any contingent make parts, there's only one, and it's going to be available much earlier. So the clear date of my job as a whole is 12/15. So adding the manufacturing lead time in the INX screen for that assembly, it says, well, this takes a while to manufacture. It's not going to be ready until 2/5. That translates up here as the date, and you can then compare it to the due date. So, and then right there, you can also kind of jump to more levels of detail through these drills. But that's the basics of the work order clear to build. And you can do that for any work order. Now, a kind of what you can say is a sister report to this is the MRP backlog analysis. You'll see it has a lot of similarities. The MRP backlog analysis says, yeah, it's nice that you can tell that to me by work orders, but when I'm talking to customers, I talk to them in terms of their POs and our sales order numbers. So can you give me an analysis that is at the sales order level that tells me what's going on? So let's say your customer has called and is really concerned about our sales order, and you know the number, so you say, let me filter for that 120512, and you're going to see in a second why I picked this guy. So again, we look at that, and I'm specifically interested in line number 2, so I'll kind of filter it to that. So it says, yeah, You have this sales order, there's your customer name and number, you're building this thing, you need 150 of them, and you have 65K on the line in backlog for that. Well, here are the sales order dates. That's when they ordered it, that's when they want it, and there's that delivery date that's also part of the made to manage infrastructure. We're thinking you're 117 days upside down. Why? Because what will be providing supply to this sales order is that job that we were just looking at, I-409. And then here we show you again the same worst gating item and tell you where it's coming from. And then we have all kinds of other information about the sales order that you can use to initially slice and dice this information. So you can say, show me everything for this particular customer. Again, just like the work order clear to build, it has a drill. And this drill looks very similar, except it starts with the sales order and it says, the job II-409 is going to be supplying our sales order line and release. And it's kind of calculated that, look, I'm kind of concerned right now because it's not going to be available until February 5th. But all of these other dynamics are the same. So this, in my previous lives, was kind of a nirvana report. Hopefully some of you out there are excited about the fact that, hey, you know what, this happens all the time. I need to surgically answer the question, what are the things that are holding up various sales orders, and be able to give very crisp answers to those. So using this report, if you're talking to the customer, Hartford Financial, you can say, well, we are worried about a gating item. If you can help us with this, our buyers have tried to get this earlier, but it's not going to arrive until December 10th. And so that's driving the dynamics, and you can just quickly give them the answer compared to hemming and hawing and not really being able to see a real-time report. Now, the magic of this, again, is so under the hood that it may be kind of lost on everyone. Let's say we expedite that order while I was talking. Well, as soon as I click on MRP backlog analysis, while that wheel is turning, again, the entire universe of the sales orders, work orders, purchase orders is being recalculated so that we know exactly what's going on. So you would just get a new update in terms of what's going on, and maybe the clear date is better now. So it's always completely recalculating for you, and it does it very fast. Moving on, I'm going to move on to MRP demand detail. MRP demand detail says, okay, I'm out of the world of focusing on a single sales order or a single work order. I want a high-level review of all of the demand in the system. So again, because we've run an MRP report, it right then and there runs an MRP report. You see the timestamp there, we're on the West Coast, that's why you see the time like that. So what do we have here? Every part here has a row, and we see information about the parts that we can use to do filtering. Like, for example, I'm only interested in purchase parts. That's a filter we can place. And then as we go through, we see all of the gross requirements after doing all of the MRP explosions by month going for 12 months, and then a beyond category to give me my total gross requirements. Besides the gross requirements, I can say, okay, those are the gross requirements, show me the planned orders. So once you've netted on-hand inventory and purchase orders that I still have on the books, what are all of the parts that I need to go buy? And here it's showing quantities. If I change this to amount, it'll take those quantities, multiply them by the standard cost, and now I'm getting a spending projection moving forward. So if I sort this in descending order, we're going to see all of the various items that we are going to be spending money on ordering based on what the MRP says. So that's good, and you can kind of dive into various reports from here. I'm going to actually show you that now. We're actually going to do a dive in, because the other way you can use this report is to say, well, in this database, these first 4 digits define a particular customer. So I'm going to say I'm interested in all my parts. Always do that. I'm interested in all my parts that start with 0087. So I do that. I'm also gonna, okay, I removed the sort there. I'm gonna also then say, show me all, I'm gonna talk about this first release date. Show me all the parts whose first release date is less than or equal to the end of this week, so tomorrow. And then I'm gonna sort this in ascending order. So I have 92 parts whose first release date is before this Friday. What is first release and why is that important? Let's pick one of these parts. It says your first release date is 5/23. Now, having a first release date that is in the past is not good. Let me explain that. So we are going to click on the description, which will drill from the MRP demand detail to the supply demand report. When I do that, this is our lowest common denominator report of MRP dynamics for a single part number. So it basically is a vertical time-lapsed view of demand and supply showing you what's driving each. So in this case, it says at time 0, you have 49 on hand in your location CW. Then you have 3 pieces of demand, one needed on June 21st, one needed on 8/9, one needed on 10/26, and these are the work orders that are driving those. Now, we can see right away that the 49 is not going to be enough to cover the 280 that we need for this work order. So it says, well, if you need that on 6/21, and I don't see any purchase orders, other supply coming in this timeline, it's backed off the dock to stock days and then backed off the vendor lead time to say, well, if you needed this on 6/21, you would have had to have ordered it on May 23rd. And so this becomes that first release date we were looking at in the macro report. So anything that has a first release date that is before this week really needs to be ordered right away. And at any point, we can click on the description to get to the supply demand report to see all of the dynamics and why it's saying that. Okay, I'm going to move quickly now into the supply parts, which are actually quicker and easier to understand. So we talked about demand and where we have imbalances that are causing problems with demand. Let's talk about imbalances in supply. The most famous imbalance of supply is excess. So we'll go ahead and run the MRP excess inventory report, and we'll take a look at what it says. So again, it's running through the entire MRP process, exploding sales orders and hitting work order demand and everything, and it comes back and it says, well, let me give you this long report that's very easy to understand. Every part number in here either has some quantity on hand or some quantity on order, and you can then filter to your heart's content. I want it for a particular product class, I want it for a particular buyer, so on and so forth. So all this information is here, and we finally get to the numbers. This is how much is on hand, this is how much is on order, and then this is the MRP simulation going through and showing us how much we have in demand. Based on these numbers, we can calculate the amount of excess on hand and value it based on standard cost or the amount of excess on order. So let's go ahead and sort this in descending order by excess on hand amount. And we're gonna see here that, and let's pick something that has some good dynamics going on. So here's something that we have 1.7 million units of on hand. Thankfully, we don't have any on order, and there's demand of 358,000 units. So Portus is saying, hey, I'm concerned about that. There's $21,000 worth of excess. Maybe you say, Agwash, where does Portus even get that number? That's why that drill to supply demand is important. So if I click on this part you can see has a lot going on with it. There's our 1.7 on hand, and here's a breakdown of everything that is driving the 358K of demand, and we can clearly see here that we're gonna have a lot of excess. So we can go analyze what we're gonna do about that, if we should sell some of this back before it ages too much or whatever. The other thing you can do on here is to say, well, I'm not interested. I'm interested in excess on hand, but I don't know. There's less I can do about that. What is excess on order amount? So if I sort that in descending order, it comes back and says, well, your number one part is this guy. We have 145 on hand. We have another 16,580 on order. Our demand is 13,440. So good news, none of the 145 is excess, but 3,140 units of the on order is excess. So again, hogwash, what are you talking about? I never order way too much. So we'll click on the description and we'll see the details. So there's our 145 on hand, and we have a total of 13,440 driven by 3 different jobs in this case. And we have these POs coming in, and it's clear that some of this last PO is not needed. That's why it's being highlighted as excess on order. Very quickly, in 2 minutes, the other main supply management tool is the PO reschedule report. The PO reschedule now is basically an open PO report, but it runs the MRP in the background and comes back and tells you what is the feedback purchase order by purchase order. So again, a lot of information about the purchase orders here. What's on order, what's the part number, who's the vendor, who's the buyer, what's the quantity, what's the amount, and then we finally get to the analytics, which is the action. So if I looked at the cancel actions, I'm going to get all the items that require some level of canceling. And maybe again, I'll sort this in descending order by amount. And it says your number one cancellation opportunity is this PO line item 1. So why does it say that? Again, we'll go over here and we'll see. We have an interesting situation here. We have 40 on hand, and we have demand from 2 different jobs that are going to absorb that 40, but somehow we still have another 65 on order that are not needed. If we took this 65 out, we'd be perfectly in balance, so it tells you that. Cancels are easier to understand, but being a student of this, one of the things that I think a lot of organizations struggle with is push-outs. Buyers never seem to have time to deal with push-outs to manage the working capital better. So here what we're going to see is our biggest push-outs. It says, hey, great news. You can push out $59,000 from 12/10 to 12/11. That lets the air out of the balloon. That's only 1 day. By the time I get done doing that, I've wasted my effort. So we're going to put another filter on here and say, I only get excited about push-outs if they are greater than, say, 3 weeks. So I'm going to say 21 days. And now I see that my number one push-out is $18,000 that I can push out from August 29th to 10/3. And then again, the buyer, whoever says, yeah, how do you know that, Portus? So I'll click on the description. It'll take me to the supply demand report. And this one's pretty easy. We have 138 on hand. We have another 262 coming in on August 29th. We will need those for the first piece of demand, but that's not needed until October 5th. So it basically, the system is saying, well, why don't you change the date from 8/29 to 10/5 to kind of match what you're seeing here. That's what the system is doing there, and that'll allow you to not spend $18,000 of the company's money too early, and that allows you to manage the working capital better. Okay, complex topic. Probably could do more, but we want to limit these to 30 days because people are busy. And again, remember that our goal is, do I see enough to warrant investing in several 1-hour demos if you'd like, but we could do a deep dive into MRP or anything you'd like. But I'll stop there and see if there's any questions that have been logged, Jessica.
I don't see any, but when you guys do have questions or when they come about, you can contact Bill, you can contact Jim Castellana, you can contact Jim Cooey, you can contact myself, and we'll all be able to help you and get you going in the right direction. So, Thank you, everyone, for attending today. And if there are no questions, we will go ahead and end. All right, everyone, have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.